The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 8th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Then Jesus began to teach the disciples that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." The Gospel of the Lord. Well, one of the things that really has been exciting for me this past week is that I've been able to spend some time planning the Holy Land trip that I'm going to be leading in the fall of next year. The tour company was in contact with me, and we planned the preliminary dates and the price, and begun to be able to plan the journey a little bit. And planning the journey is fun, but it's also a lot of work. Because not only do I want to make sure that we see all the destinations that I have in mind, I also want to make sure that the journey itself is fun and exciting. You know, you can get to a lot of these places in a lot of boring ways, or you can travel through really interesting places and have interesting scenery and see some other things which, while they may not be the destination, help to make the trip fun and exciting. And most people that go on the trip, they would like it to be fun and exciting. Also try to make sure that the journey is really comfortable for people. Because you could go for the authentic version, you know, where you go through the desert on camels without any water or air conditioning. But most people, they like the air-conditioned bus. They like the refrigerated bottled water and things like that. And usually you try to make sure that the journey is comfortable. And above all, I want to make sure that the journey is safe and secure, which is not as much of a problem in Israel as a lot of people think it is. But still, it's a concern. And the tour company always wants to tell me, just remind people, we have never, in decades of doing this, we have never ever lost a tourist. Not even once. It's safe, it's secure. That's really important for most people. And whether I'm planning a group trip like this, or I'm just kind of planning my own vacation, I feel like planning the journey is important. Not only because it helps you to reach your destination, but also because if the journey ends up being really hard, or difficult, or confusing, it'll end up distracting you from the destination that you're heading towards. It will actually make the destination really not so meaningful for you. So I always care about trying to make sure that the journey is itself a good one. And indeed, we usually say that going on a journey is more than simply reaching a destination, right? A journey is supposed to be an opportunity for you to learn and to grow. The journey itself is part of what it's all about. But sometimes, if the journey is hard, we can lose sight of the destination, and the journey that we're on ends up being not so fulfilling. And I think that was a significant problem for a lot of people in the Bible who took journeys of faith. Often, their journeys of faith involved actual, real, physical journeys. And those journeys were not nearly as fun, or as comfortable, or as safe as we like to envision them. And often, the people that went on those journeys from time to time lost sight of the destination to which God was calling them, because the journeys ended up being so hard. We can easily pass over the hard part of some of these journeys, because we don't always read all the really hard, difficult parts in the Bible. But in fact, many of the journeys of faith that people took were confusing. They were boring. I mean, if you were listening to the first reading this morning, God appears to Abraham, and Abraham is 99 years old, and God says, "I want you to take a journey." Abraham's got to be going like, "Really, God? At and 90, you couldn't have thought of this before? 99, I'm going to take a journey in the desert? This just doesn't seem like it makes any sense to me. The disciples of Jesus are a little bit more open about what they think of this journey, where Jesus says we're going to go up to Jerusalem, the Son of Man is going to be persecuted and rejected and suffer and all this kind of stuff. And the disciples are like, what kind of business model is that? For trying to win friends and influence people, start a movement. They don't get it. And besides, they're going to have to end up going through all these dinky little towns and dreary places. It's going to be long. It's going to be boring. It just doesn't seem really fun and exciting. And perhaps most importantly, these journeys of faith that people are called to go on, are really dangerous. I mean, Jesus actually tells them, when we get to Jerusalem, I'm going to be killed. And did you notice he doesn't follow it up by saying, but don't worry guys, you're all going to be fine. He leaves open the possibility that they could die also. They recognize the danger of going on this journey. And although we didn't read the part about Abraham, as Abraham continues on this journey that God calls him to, there are plenty of times where Abraham is absolutely convinced he's going to die. Or at least he's going to get sold into slavery. He wonders whether this journey that he's on is really the journey God wants him on, and whether or not the journey is worth the effort. The destinations, they're clear, and they're great. Abraham is going to become the father of a multitude of nations, and Jesus is going to rise from the dead. But the journey to get there, the journey to those places, is confusing. It's difficult. It's dangerous. And sometimes because the journey gets so difficult and dangerous and confusing, the reaction of people who are on those journeys often ends up, frankly, being kind of like Peter, who takes God and rebukes God for, what are you thinking? Why am I on this journey? This can't be right. You must have gotten it wrong, God. So the season of Lent reminds us that faith is a journey. And while the journey is sometimes fun and sometimes exciting and often safe, sometimes our journeys of faith, if we're doing them right, become uncomfortable and confusing and require sacrifices that frankly I would just as soon not like to make. And sometimes the biggest distraction that we have in our journeys is the idea that confusion and sacrifice and danger were part of the journey of faith for people in Bible times, but that's not the way it's supposed to be for us. Not for us, not here, not now. We are somehow supposed to be able to live this journey of faith in ways that are comfortable and understandable and safe. And sometimes when we get into those situations where that's not like that, we start to question the journey, just as Peter did. So I wonder if one of the most important disciplines of the journey of Lent is to practice keeping in mind that we're often on the right path, that we're actually on the right journey of faith, when that journey feels like it's frankly just boring and confusing. Because after all, we never learn or grow when things are easy to figure out. And just as that first journey with Jesus required trudging through really kind of boring places, doing boring things, I mean, you never read in the New Testament about how the disciples got to do the laundry and they got to cook and they got to clean up and they got to do all that. But all that stuff is required to get them where they're going. And sometimes the journey, it's just boring. I thought about those sharing bags this week, and I thought, about 2 months ago, there was a little sharing tree, a giving tree that's out there. It has little tags where we buy gifts for kids. And it's like, buying gifts for kids, that's fun, that's exciting. Buying underwear and toilet paper, not so much. But sometimes doing that boring stuff is the very way we share God's love, that we share the journey of faith with others. Sometimes if we're bored and confused, maybe that is in fact the journey of faith to which Jesus is calling us. Sometimes for us too, we're on the right track in our journeys of faith when the journey becomes hard and difficult. That, though, is sometimes one of the first times that people will start to question their faith, to question their journey. It's not supposed to be hard and difficult, because we live in a culture that says your faith, whatever faith you practice, is supposed to make your life easy and happy and joyful, and even your terminal illness should be an adventure. And even though we know Jesus says no such thing, still, when we get into those moments when our journey becomes difficult and hard and we can't see the end of the suffering, we start to wonder about the journey. Jesus does promise us also a destination of life and wholeness and resurrection. But sometimes for us too, the only way to get there is a way that involves pain and suffering and even death. And maybe the most important thing for us too is to remember that our journey of faith sometimes, in fact, will be dangerous and require sacrifices that we might not like to make. You know, it's natural to want to protect ourselves and to protect others, and it's a good thing. But if we're unwilling to take any risk, if we're unwilling to do anything where there's the slightest chance that something bad might happen, then we will never go on any journey of faith, especially if there is snow on the ground. Because this past couple of weeks, you know, there's all kinds of Facebook posts that Pastor Christine and I have been watching our pastor buddies post about canceling services and all kinds of activities and things like that. And sometimes you got to cancel them because people can't get out, and it really, the roads are just horrible and you can't do anything. But on some level, it started to become ridiculous, where people were canceling things that happened 2 or 3 days after the snow event because there might still be ice someplace, somewhere, that someone might slip on. And while I think that gets a little goofy, in the end, the thing that was really kind of bothering me was I thought, you know, if what we're conveying to people is this theology that somehow your journey of faith should be so safe and so easy and so secure that it should not involve even the ordinary risk and danger that's required for you to, like, walk out your front door in the morning and go to work, then I think we've missed something about what the journey of faith is all about. Jesus calls us to live boldly and courageously in the world, and that doesn't mean going out and necessarily doing stupid stuff, but it does mean being people who are willing to say the journey isn't always as safe and as easy as we would like it to be. You know, like those first disciples, Jesus calls us to be on a journey of faith with Him, and He promises us the destination of life and wholeness and resurrection. But the journey to get there is not always fun or easy or safe. Sometimes the journey can be confusing and hard and even dangerous. But like those first disciples, Jesus promises us that He's with us on those journeys, no matter where those journeys go. Like those first disciples, Jesus calls us to be people who journey together so that we can support and help one another in the difficult moments, in the confusion, and in the mess that the journey sometimes takes. And maybe most importantly, Jesus promises us also that the final destination of life and wholeness and resurrection is a guaranteed gift of God that is never in question, no matter how hard or how long or how difficult the journey may seem.